Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? I even heard a woo. That's amazing. I call that really, really good. You guys are doing really, really well. All right. I want you to take a look at the next slide, and I want you to tell me what's missing. I don't want you to look at the particular contents of the next slide. I just want you to get an aesthetic feel for it, okay? Just tell me what it feels like for you. Ready? Here we go. What does this feel like for you? Just when you look at it. You can yell it out, or I won't hear you.
Busy.
Busy, yes, there's lots going on. What else? Blue, it's very blue. I thought I would be very Gartner also and go very blue. What else? Direction, yes, very directed. There's 1, 2, 3. We're going to be directed. We're going to do first 1, then 2, then 3. What else? Someone over here? A little louder?
The human side is missing.
Ah, so she's jumped to what's missing. Yes, I'm not going to say that. So yes, you're right, but hold on, let's see. Anybody else? What's missing from this slide? She got it right, so no pressure. What's missing? People! People, right? The humans are missing. And the thing is, this very ordered, very beautiful, very right angle, step 1, step 2, step 3, if you just follow these things, great things will happen, right? When you add humans, things get messy. Right? So everyone starts out with these perfect transformation plans. They fit on spreadsheets. The spreadsheets are color-coded. Things look gorgeous and ordered. What could possibly go wrong? Well, if this is a security plan. It's a real plan from Gartner. There's a lot more around the people side that they do provide. But if we just looked at this one angle, right? When you add the people and you're trying to change, say, security behaviors, things like this happen. You know, I totally get what you want to do with the security training. I'm just going to write down this password real quick, just so I don't forget, right? Or, oh my gosh, we totally are low budget because we used open source code. It's awesome. It's great, right? Or, this has a lot of acronyms in it, but I think you know it. I just hate multi-factor authentication. It's so annoying. So I'm just going to go around that. And WhatsApp you the file or Gmail it to you or whatever, and then it's just easier because if I work from home, et cetera, et cetera. Or, what would be easier since we're all working together? Let's just use like a shared password and a shared account. It's just so much easier. I mean, I totally did the security training, and my heart is with you. But just for this one time, we're just going to share some passwords. Right? Okay, and so this is what really happens. All these beautiful right-angled boxes that look so clean and so gorgeous and so organized get messed up when the humans are involved. My contention is the following. One of the reasons this happens is because we make transformation plans of any kind. Could be security, could be culture change, could be what are we going to do about AI, could be infrastructure and operation, could be anything, okay? We make some kind of plan, some kind of big transformation plan, and we're super rigorous about it. As I say, spreadsheets, Gantt charts, goals, they're measured. We got deadlines, we got budgets, it's all very specific. But then when we get to the behavioral part, it gets really, really mushy. Okay, we go, oh yeah, and we also, that's really important too. I just hope that if I email that stakeholder at 5 p.m. on a Friday, they'll get it. And the change will just happen. And this isn't really true. And so my contention is, one of the things we're missing in big transformation initiatives is behavioral science, because it turns out there is a science behind behavior. If you look at the disciplines, not just of behavioral science, but also neuroscience and psychology, there are 3 disciplines that tell us how humans behave and how they change and under what conditions they change. It's just that in the business environment, public and private sector, we're collectively ignoring all of that, 50 years of science, and going, I'm just going to feel my way through this. So this is a definition of behavioral science. It talks about how humans behave at the limits, beyond the limits of rational decision making, right? And it talks about two elements. The first is behavior, which most people kind of get. The second is science, as in there is a rigor to this and a lot of evidence to how you do it, okay? And I just want to talk about the behavioral side for 1 second and say, and the rational decision making, and just say, if I had two messages for you today, the first would be, you can and you should be as rigorous about the emotional life of your transformation as you are about everything else. That's number one. And number two is, human beings are deeply irrational. You are, I am, we all are. It's not a value judgment, it's just a statement of fact. Here's a real story from, I don't know, this is a long time ago, like maybe 12 years ago, 10 years ago, call it, okay? I was doing a presentation and with an executive committee, doing a presentation, and after I went up, the CIO went up and presented to the whole committee, the CEO, the CFO, the CMO, everybody, okay? And the CIO presented on the successful implementation of a single instance worldwide ERP implementation. It happened on time, it happened on budget, and they put in the required functionality. And the operating committee went, great job, clap, 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 good job, okay? After that meeting, the CEO came up to the CIO and said, I just cannot get on the Wi-Fi. Can you solve this problem? I can't get on the Wi-Fi with my mobile phone. Okay, very irate. And the CIO, in that instance, like every CIO ever created, became the executive help desk and fixed the Wi-Fi problem, right? Okay, so what happened next? I was standing right there, and I'm telling you, the look of joy on the CEO's face when the Wi-Fi problem was solved exceeded by a large margin the look of joy on the CEO's face when the single instance global SAP implementation was done on time, on budget for multiple millions. Not rational. We just need to embrace it. If we want to change behavior, we have to make sure we embrace the fact that we're not rational beings, and that's okay. You can use that, okay? So I want to address 3 questions today. Question number 1 is, what assumptions am I making about my people and their motivations and why they do what they do? Number 2, do I know what I want them to do, how I want them to behave, like specifically, what change I want them to make specifically? And number 3, are there any obstacles that could interfere with that? How would I deal with that? So if we look at number 1, okay, what assumptions am I making about my people? There's this myth that says, you know, I know exactly what's preventing my employees from changing. And mostly, the answer to that is, I need to repeat myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand up at one town hall, and I'm going to lay out for everybody all the reasonable, rational arguments for why we need to change. The pace of technology is increasing. The competition has made a move. The pace of change in general is increasing. The world has changed. Inflation, threat of recession, all these things, right? And we line up all these arguments, and then we collectively give them a very cool transformation name. One Acme Corporation, right? Or whatever. Or we name the initiative after a prehistoric animal that's extinct, Project T-Rex, right? Or after one that's mythological and never existed, Project Phoenix, right? And we just go, yes, now I'm going to get them on my side. And then we go, I don't know why they didn't get, you know what, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it again in the next town hall. And I'm going to lay out all the rational arguments, and I'm going to expect people to change. And we go, man, our people suck at change, right? They don't suck at change. They just suck at change they don't understand or that they're not motivated by. This is a motivation game, okay? And a lot of times you don't know what is preventing your employees from changing, okay? So some of the common incorrect executive assumptions are on this slide. You know, if they just understood better, they would change. If they knew it was at stake, you know, we might go out of business if we don't do this, or our citizens really require it, or whatever, then they'd change. Or, you know, we're in danger, or something's going to happen. No, right? If it's good for the organization, that's enough. It's good for us, we need to do it, right? Or I've laid out all the arguments. And if they don't change, it's because they just don't want to. Right? We make all these assumptions. So what's really happening is summed up by this quote by a guy named Olivier Sibony. He's the principal author, along with Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize-winning thought leader in behavioral economics, about a book called Noise, A Flaw in Human Judgment, about how humans really behave. And this is what he says, right? So what this is really called is the myth of explanatory depth. The myth of explanatory depth. So were you handed a piece of paper when you walked in here and a pen? Were you wondering what it was for? This is what it's for. Can you pick up that piece of paper and a pen? Okay. If you don't have one, there's pads, so you can ask the person next to you and they can rip off a sheet, okay? All right. So we're not going to use it yet. First, I want to ask you a question. Raise your hand if you know how to ride a bike. Okay, good. Right. Keep your hand up if you know how a bike works. Okay, good. All right, awesome. You know how to ride a bike. You know how a bike works. Can you just draw a bike for me, please? Just quickly, like 30 seconds. Go ahead. Not a joke. Just draw one. And hold on, I'm going to go back to this slide so you don't have a prototype in front of you. Go ahead. I'll wait. Quick sketch, doesn't have to be perfect. I hear some giggles. I hear some sheepish laughing, like I thought I knew how to do this. All right, whatever you got, it's great. This is not an art class. Turn to the person next to you and just compare notes. Just take a look, compare notes, see what you got. Wow. Wow. Okay. Anybody want to yell out how that felt? Do you feel like you got a 10 out of 10 for drawing a precise bike? Anybody? Anybody give themselves under a 5 for a precise bike drawing? Lift your hand up if you're giving yourself under a 5. This is a test of honesty. I expect more hands. All right, here's your prototype again. This is the myth of explanatory depth. We think we know things. So we go, yeah, I know how to do this. Or I know what I want as an executive, as a leader. I know what I want when I'm asking my people. And I just explained it to them, so they must know. This is the myth of explanatory depth. And then we assume that if they're not acting the way that we thought we laid out so clearly, we thought everybody knew how to draw a perfect bike, that it must be because they don't want to. It's much more interesting if you start by asking, what if they don't know? This is one of the key questions that behavioral economists ask when they run experiments for, say, consumer behavior, or security behavior, or management behavior, or coaching, or executive leadership decision-making. They go, what if they don't know how to make a great decision under pressure? What if, if you're in banking, what if consumers don't know how to spend money to maximize their own happiness? If you're doing wedding planning or figuring out behavior, what if a young couple doesn't know how to plan a wedding? What if someone doesn't know how to plan a funeral? Like, you get too much. It's not just that this is a more honest discussion about what we know and don't know, and we get to the bottom of the myth of explanatory depth, we get to more depth. It's that the depth we get is much more interesting and directed to what we need to work on for people to actually embrace the change we're facing. So the myth of explanatory depth has a request of you, which is start with what if they don't know? And then start observing behavior and asking questions. On that assumption, it'll lead to a much higher caliber discussion and a much more empathetic one, which then builds a bunch of goodwill about, okay, I understand what you're asking for, leader, and now I'm willing to listen and do it. I feel understood. Okay, that's number one. All right, question number 2. What do I actually want? Do I know? What's the myth of explanatory depth with regard to me? Like, do I actually know what I want people to say, what I want people to do, how I want them to behave? Or are we just throwing words around? Like, I spend a lot of my time talking to executive leadership teams about transformations, okay? And the number one question I get is, Mary, can you help me with my transformation? And I say, sure. What are you transforming into? And then, yeah, this happens. There's like nervous titters, or there's pregnant pause. And then someone at some point says something like this. Oh, yeah, we are transforming into a digital-first organization ready for the challenges of the 21st century, exploiting our ecosystem of partners in order to deliver agile, customer-centric innovations everywhere in a sustainable way using generative AI, because it's 2023, and we should also say that. So like, I know you know this, but just for the record, no one listening, no employee listening to that goes, I just can't wait to do that. When do we start? They go, I don't know what that was. I have 50 emails. I got a meeting I'm planning. I got some groceries to buy. I got my 3-year-old to care for. I got something a performance evaluation to do. I'm running my team. I got a snafu back in my team operations. So yeah, I'm going to go do that, whatever that was. Good luck. Okay? That's what's really happening. So do we know what we want when we throw around these words like being more digital and more collaborative and breaking down silos and being empowered and being, more agile? That's another one. Do we really know what we want? And do we know what we don't want? Would you know it if you saw it? And would you know it if you saw the opposite? Okay? All right. So the myth is, if you provide really clear business objectives, people will just pursue them. Like if we say, but clearly we need this done by June. So go. Go. Right? Or this has to, we've acquired a company and the acquisition has to be done in 2 years or whatever, or we want this new initiative done, or we want to try this new thing. You just go, we've got a really clear business objective, June or whatever it is. We go, that's a really clear business objective. Isn't that going to help? Well, no, because that is in the category of things humans should do. Okay? And here's something. Humans don't do things just because they should. Shocker. You guys actually know this, right? So like if you're my nutritionist and you're trying to convince me to change my behavior, okay? And you're going, Mary, for eating, I just want you to know that for women over 40, there's all these statistics and all these studies that have been done about how you should eat a lot more leafy greens. You should eat a lot of spinach, a lot of kale, because they have calcium, antioxidants, they get rid of free radicals. I don't know what those are, but osteoporosis, blah, 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 blah. You should eat. What are the chances I'm going to go, shut up? Really? Are you kidding? What? I am going to run and go buy some spinach right now. What are the chances? Chances are 0. Why? Because I live on a planet with chocolate. Right? So this is something I call the kale chocolate problem. Okay? The problem is not that I don't know. I know. I just don't want to. I know I'm supposed to eat kale. I don't want to. Right? I want to eat chocolate every single day. And you're like, oh, but chocolate's a superfood. Only if it's 85% cocoa. I don't want that. I want Cadbury's, milk chocolate, fruit and nut, probably first ingredient sugar. There is nothing we can do to sell this as healthy, and I want it every day. Right? So this is what I mean about we don't do things just because we should. We don't do the most rational thing. All right. So what I'm suggesting is, your transformation initiative, whatever it is chock full of kale. It's chock full of stuff you're supposed to do. All the adults in the room, we're going to behave like grown-ups, and we're all going to do this every day, right? But your people need chocolate to keep going. So in this context, what is chocolate? It's a few things, okay? Number one, it's something unexpected for them in a good way. They weren't expecting this. It's kind of pleasurable and good. Number two, it sparks some kind of joy, like, oh, that was amazing. Or it resolves some persistent frustration, like every day the stupid thing happens and you just resolve it. Like the digital equivalent to someone stubbing their toe every day. Right? It's like every time I get that stupid message, you just resolve it for them, right? That's chocolate. It's also something that is easy for you to do. This is not 10 people, 6 months, big project. It's something you could just whip up, okay? Here's the thing. Chocolate will never, ever make it to the top of a prioritized, demand-managed ROI list of stuff you are supposed to do. You know, I've never met a personal trainer going, my advice, Mary, is for you to eat Cadbury's milk chocolate fruit and nut twice a day. Not once, twice, right? It's never gonna make it to the top of the list of stuff you're supposed to do, right? So, find the chocolate. In your transformation, where's the chocolate for your team? This is very team specific, sometimes individually specific. If you've got a curmudgeon that's just never gonna change, what's the chocolate for that person or for that team? So it's very specific. Here's some ideas. Can you make something easier for someone? Unexpectedly easy, like, oh, I just thought this was gonna be 10 days and tons of forms and things I had to fill out, and you just said yes? You just said yes to it? Like, that's it? We're done? Would you like my firstborn child? I mean, honestly, really? We're just gonna, okay. I mean, I'm loyal to you forever, right? Can you remove some of the drudgery? Can you remove some kind of trigger where every time I hear that word, I just, you know, some places are allergic to words. Some places are allergic to certain technology providers. Like, don't name that provider, you know what happened. Or don't, if someone else comes to me with an innovation initiative, seriously, heads are gonna roll. You know, they just have to remove the trigger, right? Can you make something beautiful? Aesthetics are chocolate. Just making something gorgeous. Having the best communication, making something beautiful is a good way to find chocolate. Can you make something fun? It is amazing how much time people have for things they actually want to do, right? I just don't have time for that, Mary, is really a euphemism for that's not really that important or interesting to me, most of the time, right? It's amazing how much time people have for things that they actually want to do. What makes people want to do something? When your meeting is more fun than everybody else's meeting, or more compelling, or there's information in that meeting that they aren't going to get anywhere else at all. Right? And do people feel like they're part of the solution? Does this have high signaling power? Is it saying emotionally, hey, this is different, this is happening, okay? So these are just ideas for how you trigger the chocolate. But what you want is something small, and then you sprinkle the chocolate through the kale. You can't get rid of the kale. Kale's important, you need to do it. Well-run IT organizations have tons of kale on purpose, okay? But you gotta sprinkle the chocolate through. People just can't eat their kale all the way to the transformation end. Oh, wait, we have to tell them it'll never end. We're always going to transform. You're always going to eat kale. You know, sometimes I talk to clients and they're like, well, it's just I want my people to understand that the change is never ending, you know, and just embrace that. And I'm like, you're really just sentencing them to kale and spinach forever. You know, give them some chocolate cake. So just find this, sprinkle it through, yeah? So the key issue here is seek out the chocolate and sell that, minimize the kale, or at least compartmentalize it, little bits of it, so that you can keep people motivated. Remember, this is a motivation game. You don't get points for being right. You only get points for being motivating. You lose points for being wrong. Don't get me wrong, you can't just make up stuff. You lose points for being wrong, but you don't get any extra points for being right. This is about motivation. That's what behavioral science helps with, motivating people to change in the way you want. Okay, third question. What obstacles are interfering with this change? Like, what is getting in the way of my people understanding what they need to do, understanding what they need to say, understanding how they need to behave? All right, so there's this myth that, you know, clear business goals overcome obstacles to change. And what I want to leave you with is this message. For every business objective you have, try creating a behavioral objective. So some of you are on efficiency drives, you know, blanket cut 25% or something. What's the behavior you want? Do you want people to just cut willy-nilly, hodgepodge, whatever they think is best? Do you want to direct that behavior at certain things and away from other things? Do you want to say, look, you all know the obvious cuts, the first 10%, but say the second 10% or 10 or 15%, for that I want you to look here, I want you to behave in this way, I want you to find this. Do you know what the behavioral objective is that accompanies the business objective? Be as specific as you can. Generic doesn't motivate people to change. In the same way as if my nutritionist said to all of you, I want you to eat healthily. That's generic. So some of you are like, oh yeah, I'm going vegan. But some of you are going, yeah, I'm going keto. Those are opposite, kinda. right? And so which one is it? How are we going to behave healthily? If it's generic, I can actually justify anything I want under it because it all fits, right? So be specific about the behavioral objective you want. So how to clarify behavioral objectives? Would you know it if you saw it? What would be happening around you in a meeting, like in a real meeting, if you saw this thing, if you saw people behaving in a collaborative way or an innovative way or being agile or being empowered or whatever the words are, what would it look like in an actual meeting, in an actual budget discussion, in an actual strategy session, in an actual email? How would it change an agenda? Be specific. What would it look like? Then script the new behavior. Like if you want innovation, you could script it and say, look, we're going to default to saying yes for every new idea for 2 weeks. We're just going to be prototyping on paper. Doesn't cost us much, just a bit of time. We're not going to commit a bunch of money. But we're just going to default to yes because we have too much no. Well, you hadn't thought about, well, technically, right? We're just going to default to yes to try and practice this new behavior because we want innovation. So that's the behavior, default to yes. Or introduce moments. I was talking earlier with a client today about how I always know when I'm in an oil and gas company, physically, in their headquarters, and there's an escalator. Because I'm going up the escalator, and someone invariably says, Mary, please put your hand on the rail. This doesn't happen in banks. I mean, it's not like banks want me to fall off the escalator or something. So it doesn't happen in retail. It doesn't happen it doesn't happen mostly in the public sector, but it happens in oil and gas. Why? Because they're going, we want our people to prioritize safety. And it goes from the CEO all the way down to someone walking in like me and riding an escalator. That is the kind of connection we want, right? It's a safety moment. In this meeting, here's the exits. On this escalator, use your hand. Do not text and drive, right? It's very specific behavioral changes I have to make because of the thing the CEO said. We prioritize safety, right? So introduce moments where you take that behavior and you introduce it. Try to create alerts for the wrong behavior. That's not really what we're looking for. Or, I don't know, we want a more positive organization. We don't start with the problems from the thing we just did. We start with what's working, what worked, what can we celebrate, and then we'll get to the problems. But just inverting can sometimes signal which behavior is best, right? And then create a low-risk way for people to practice. Okay, so here's my idea, right? This is called a comfort challenge. Let's say that you were all trying to practice, I don't know, you don't like conflict. And we're just going to have to be in more conflict with the wider organization because we're not going to be servants and we're not going to be order takers. We've got to change what we do, right? And so this is new for people. It's different behavior, okay? Then I would say, if this is an uncomfortable behavior for you, walk into your local coffee shop or walk into the Star Hotel and lie on the ground. Some of you are like, ew, gross. But just stay with me, right? Lie on the ground. Are you doing anything to hurt anyone? No. Are you doing anything that is dangerous? No. Someone will probably come up to you and be like, are you okay? Or you're like, I'm fine, I'm good, just hanging out, right? It's deeply socially weird to do that. So practice being uncomfortable. There has to be a way to practice the new behavior or people won't do it because new is threatening. Okay, 3 ideas to leave you with. 1, for the new behavior, stress test it. When is it going to be impossible for us to do this? We want to have all these priorities and do all these good things, but when it's close to year end and everybody's frenetically running around, it's going to be near impossible to get them to pay attention to those long-term goals. What are we going to do then? That's like me saying, I want to meditate for 20 minutes every day. And then I come to Gold Coast Symposium, I'm super jet lagged, I have 18-hour days. I already knew 6 months ago that it was going to be hard. I don't need to be here to know that. I already knew that. And your teams already know. When's it going to be hard to do this? Road test the new behavior. If this were true, what would change in our day-to-day life? Would that committee meeting change? Would the agenda change? Would we have to hire someone? We have to reform teams, break up teams? What do we have to do? Something has to happen as a result of this. Otherwise, it stays as kind of theoretical and conceptual. And the last one is consider risk homeostasis. Consider the fact that you are asking someone to do something that they perceive as unsafe. So it is absolutely your job to make it as safe as possible. You do that in many ways. One way is to modify your language. So a lot of clients come and say, we need more innovation. And so what I'm saying is, to all my people is, embrace failure. I mean, that's not wrong, but it's really hard. Right? These people have 20 years of their back going, failing is not a career advancing move, really the opposite. So totally, we're gonna embrace failure. You go first and embrace it. I'm right behind you, I swear, right? So it's like, I understand what you're trying to get to. You want us to try some stuff? Yeah, sounds really good. I'm not doing that. Okay, so you need to make it safe. So you could say, right, instead of embrace failure, which is really triggery and very negative, you could say, we're just gonna learn and experiment. We're gonna go on this adventure. We're gonna fall down a whole bunch. It's okay, we're learning, we're experimenting. It's not gonna remove all the risk, but the language you use makes it a lot safer for people to try that new thing. Okay, so stress test the behavior, road test the behavior, and consider risk homeostasis. Try and get people to not have to take on more risk as they do this new behavior. Let them practice it, have a low stress environment to do it. Okay, so let me just skip ahead for a second. I'm gonna get to the end here. If you want people to behave in a new way, you have to make it easy for them and you have to make it safe for them. Okay, that is the key takeaway from this. All right, so these 3 questions, number 1, number 2, number 3, right? What assumptions am I making? Do I know what I want from my people and what are the obstacles? The 3 key takeaways I want you to take away are don't fall for the myth of explanatory depth. Do they understand and do you understand? Really? Start with, what if they don't know? It leads to a better conversation. For what you want people to say and believe, search for the chocolate. Don't rely on the kale. Sprinkle the chocolate through. They won't do it just because they should. So find the chocolate. And for what obstacles could interfere, try to make it as easy as possible for people to do the next thing and as safe as possible for people to do the next thing. So if you're concerned about user behavior, evaluate change through a behavioral lens. This means that apart from tracking whether the control works, you have to think about how employees are experiencing it. This isn't kumbaya, it's more efficient, okay? Number 3, question your assumptions and your intuition, especially if you're in front of something that's brand new, like executives with working from home, brand new for them. Sometimes the intuition will lead them wrong. And last, to reduce the undesired behavior, reduce the friction, make it safe, make it easy. Go forth, be great change agents. Thank you very much.